Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at HIMS and HERS health. It is time for another update, and on this chart we are still looking for at least one more leg up into new all-time high territory before expecting a larger correction to unfold. Now, as I was mentioning in the previous video, and I was very thorough in the interpretations that I presented, there are even more bullish scenarios that are possible on this chart. Yeah, but those aren't necessarily a high focus for us. This also aligns better with the broader market expectations. And right now, yeah, this is probably what we are going to focus on until we get some evidence that something more bullish is indeed going to play out. And right now, within this scenario, we are going to track this interpretation, this bullish assumption that we are going to form a new high, especially as long as we hold here above the 78.6% retracement in this smaller time frame area of support, where if we break the $30 level, it would be a pretty great signal that this structure, this overall pattern to the upside is going to fail, and we will likely need to take a different assumption, and I say likely because invalidation would actually require us to break here the $24 level instead, yeah, the beginning of this wave A to the upside. Now, with that said, I want to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new still, and here we are tracking a larger leading diagonal to be forming a 5-wave move to the upside, where in the wave 1 we have an ABC structure done, we have an ABC structure in the wave 2, and we are looking for an ABC structure in the wave 3, where within the wave C, in the third wave, we are tracking an ending diagonal right now. And within this ending diagonal, we have so far completed the wave 1, 2, 3, and ideally 4th, where in the 5th wave, we have already done the wave A, we have likely done the correction in the wave B, and we are looking for already the reversal to the upside in the wave C. Now, since the wave A is complete and the wave B could be complete, we can assume an ideal target, but this assumption is based on the idea that the wave B has already been completed, yeah, that we aren't going to form any additional lows within this correction. And in that case, I would be looking for the ideal target for the wave C at around the $96, $97 level, around the 100% extension of the wave A. But as I always say, we don't need to get there, and we don't need to stop there within such a pattern. Yeah, the wave C does sometimes even extend all the way up to the 138.2% extension, which is normally the ideal target for the wave 3. But yeah, we will need to be tracking the internal structure of this 5-wave move that is expected to unfold for a more reliable assumption of where we should be looking for a completion of this pattern. Now, with that said, in the previous videos, in many of them, we have been looking still for another low within this correction in the wave B ever since we have formed here this initial 5-wave move to the downside in the wave A. And we had here the resistance area in red to allow us to track such a signal that, yeah, if broken, the 78.6% retracement, if broken with a sustained movement, a sustained break, it would be a signal that we are likely not going to get this low. But clearly, this wasn't the case. We have only gotten a couple of weeks above this level, and then we got rejected and pushed as expected deep into the area of support. And from this area, we are now tracking a possible reversal to the upside, where honestly, we are still looking here for a potential additional double potential 1-2-1-2 setup, since this structure itself is likely not at wave 3, but this is the area, these are the levels that I would focus on the most for resistance at this time. But so far we haven't even gotten to the area of support, and we are still looking to build a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside, where in the previous video we were looking still to build this structure within an internal, yeah, we had here a 1-2 setup, and we were looking for a potential additional 1-2 setup in this area. But the wave 1 itself was not complete, and we were still looking for additional highs within this area, and it seems we have gotten them. Yeah, I would actually now argue that we have all the moves needed for the 5-wave move to the upside within this area, and I would be able now to be tracking an internal 1-2 setup of this larger wave 3. Now, in this case, we can even adjust the area of support for such an expectation, because it would allow us to look from the 38.2% retracement, which is at the $38.9 level, all the way down to the 78.6% retracement, which is at the $36.9 level. So far, we have pushed perfectly into the 50% retracement before starting our reversal to the upside. We have a very nice and clear three-wave structure to the downside, which allows us to track quite reliably a possible bottom within this internal 1-2 setup in this area, and possibly we already may be in a wave 3 right now. Now, the thing is, within such a pattern that has already formed to the upside in this area, it could be also counted as an ABC movement. Yeah, it could be a corrective pattern, in which case we may be still within a larger trend to the downside. And in the previous video, I was mentioning that while this structure could allow further extensions lower, I wasn't going to focus on an interpretation that would allow here a 1, 2, third, fourth, and a fifth, mostly due to the proportions that we were already having within the wave 4. Now, while it is and while it was technically possible, we decided to not follow it actively, but I want to remind you once again that yeah, this is still a risk. Right now, we are still above the area of support. We have a potential double 1-2-1-2 setup, but the beauty of it is that breaking here below the 78.6% retracement, below this internal area of support, would be a signal to us that this structure is likely not going to work out. Sure, it could work out within a larger pattern. It could even work out within a larger diagonal structure. It could work, for example, we have a couple of options here. If the 78.6% retracement fails, we have a couple of options that could allow us to still move higher. And firstly, we would have the possibility of an ABC structure, but then also the possibility of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, where it could be working out as a leading diagonal. And I am only mentioning those because we will not be actively tracking these interpretations for a trade setup, mainly due to the fact that those are not reliable trade setups. What is reliable is this larger 5-wave move to the upside, this larger AB setup, or yeah, what could be even considered a 1-2 setup. What is reliable was this initial small time frame 1-2 setup in this area. What could be not necessarily as reliable, because yeah, this is a potential ABC, and yeah, firstly we could have had here an AB where we would have still expected a wave C. Well, we may have a full pattern in a correction, but we would still have here a potential 1-2 setup. This is also an interesting movement to be tracking for a third wave to the upside, and it is interesting because it has a smaller area of support that can be tracked for a very, very early signal that it is likely not going to work out, because in terms of probabilities, or possibilities rather, this could be an ABC structure. Yeah, it could be a complete pattern, but this allows us to look for a very, very great area for a good risk-reward ratio potential trade. Now, within this pattern, I wouldn't necessarily assume that we should be going into the area of support once again, and it is possible, but if we are to track here the resistance levels, we would have already broken above all relevant resistances within this movement to the upside. And while we don't have an initial tiny 5-wave move to the upside in this area, I am open to the idea of tracking a potential series of 1-2 setups instead, or yeah, different interpretations that could allow this movement still to push here in a more direct fashion in the third wave to the upside. Now, we won't go too much internally within this structure. I will, however, provide you an ideal target for the wave 3, or for this internal wave 3, where it would be around the $46 level, the 138.2% extension of this 1-2 setup. And this is valid only as long as we don't form another low within this wave 2. And then internally in this area, if I were to be looking here for a potential 1-2 setup, well, we could be tracking a very, very tiny area of support. But yeah, on such a small time frame, distortions are possible, and we may need to be more ready than not to have a failure occur, because within this structure to the upside, realistically, I could be easily considering it as an ABC movement that could be part of a larger ABC structure within this wave 2. So I wouldn't necessarily focus too much for, or look too much for an entry in this area. Yeah, maybe this larger one, because we have here the 78.6% retracement, which is a more clear signal. But yeah, internally, this is for us to track this movement to the upside, how likely it is to still work out, where here break below the $39.3 level would be a signal that yeah, this structure has more chances than not to actually fail. or at least not play out within a more direct impulse. Yeah, sure, it may form a larger 1-2 setup in a leading diagonal, but again, those are not interpretations that we want to be actively tracking, not especially not on this time frame, especially not when those are diagonal patterns. Yeah, those are not high probability interpretations. And in this area, if I were to look for a 1-2 setup, I would actually argue that this is a full ABC structure complete and that we don't need any additional lows. So I can tell you that, yeah, it is on a very small time frame. Those are very fragile, but I wouldn't expect any lows if this pattern is really to work out. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.